And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Shaping Success, the show where we talk about success and how people created that, as it is different for every single individual. Today, we have a great guest. She's a veteran influencer, author, and I feel a little stupid because I didn't ask her if I'm going to say her name right, but we'll see what I get. So our guest today is Janae Sergio. Did I get it right?
Thank you for having me, and you did get it right.
Perfect. Hey, Janae, thanks for hanging out here. You know, a good friend of mine, Michelle Carroll, on TikTok reached out and said that you would be an awesome guest, and I kind of looked into what you were doing. We talked a little bit before how I don't like to kind of know too much, but I know just about enough about you. Sounds like you have a very interesting life, and you know, we just wanted to kind of have you on and talk about how you created your success.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so you just released a book, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But can you tell us, you know, you have kind of an interesting past. You know, at age 16, you were kind of put out of your own home and homeless, and then you joined there's a bunch to it, but let's start there. Let's talk about that.
So I come from a long line of family dysfunction. At age 16, my mom dropped me off at a homeless shelter in Hollywood, California, where I spent the next 2.5 years surviving the streets of Los Angeles. At 18 years old, I joined the Navy. I served for 8 years. I was actually one of the first service members to be sent off to war after 9/11 on board the Stennis. And after I transitioned out of the military, I started working for the government, became pretty successful in my career, gained a pretty cool following on social media where I was able to finally start really sharing my story and living my passion. And so that's what brought me to writing the book and really wanted to get my story out and help heal through helping others.
Yeah, so let's talk about, you know, it's awesome because it's just like you're reaching out for that passion, you're trying to find that. Let's talk a little bit about kind of the beginning, because at 16 being homeless, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. That's tough when your parents just kind of like, here you go, see you later. You know, how did that affect your childhood?
I had to grow up very quickly. And, you know, prior to that, there was a lot of abuse and neglect already. And so I was already having to grow up quickly. But this was something completely new and different. I had no idea how to survive homelessness. So I had to really seek assistance from the resources that were available in Los Angeles, as well as the people who had been homeless longer than I had. I remember one of the first people that I encountered when I got to the homeless shelter was a girl who had already been roped into the sex trafficking and drug addiction ring. She was heavily addicted to heroin, and she explained to me kind of how she got there and pleaded with me not to allow myself to get into that situation. And so the decisions that I had to make along the way really lended to what I wanted for myself. And it was that I did not want to stay there.
So you spent it, and it's interesting because you didn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't graduate from high school, right? You actually had to get your GED while you were off on a ship, right? Is that how that kind of happened? Yeah,
it's kind of an interesting story. I tried for the 2.5 years that I was on the streets. I tried to go to school. I spent about a year out of school because I wasn't able to get enrolled. So I missed about a year. I tried to catch up and to get my, diploma, but I also tried to get my GED, and it just wasn't working for me. And so one of my girlfriends mentioned that she had joined the Navy and invited me to meet with a recruiter. The recruiter was able to get me a waiver to come into the military without my GED or high school diploma. And I was supposed to get it in boot camp. I was supposed to stick around in boot camp for another week after I finished and get my GED. But they assigned me like a rating, a job rating, and forgot. And so I went on to make rate. I went on, and while we were at war, while we were deployed, that's when I realized that we realized that I still hadn't got my GED. I had signed up on the ship. They take college professors out on deployment with us so that we could take classes. And I had tried to sign up for a college class, and they were like, you're kind of missing something here. And so while we were deployed and performing combat operations, I was on the mess decks taking my GED test and ended up earning my bachelor's degree after I got out of the military.
Oh, that's awesome. It's interesting because you think about like, they didn't know, like they knew, but they didn't know. I feel like they don't do that anymore. I feel like it's like you either have a diploma or you have your GED or you don't get the option. Was that something that they just kind of, because it was post 9/11, they were just like, hey, we need to get as many people as we can and we're just going to do it? Or?
It was actually before 9/11. I actually joined in 2000. And so I'm not sure why they gave it to me. I think that my story was just compelling enough that I think, having stayed out of trouble the entire time that I was homeless, I didn't get into any trouble. And we spent a lot of time working on the speech that I would give to the chiefs so that they could decide whether or not they were going to allow me that waiver. But I think it was still a pretty unique option. And my understanding now is that in some cases you actually have to have a degree, right? A college degree to get in. So it's kind of crazy that I was able to not only join, but then to also go as long as I did without having it.
Yeah. And, there's so many things going through this because we've got to be pretty close to the same age. I'm thinking just because I graduated from high school, then, went to college and like in 2000, 9/11 happened or whatever just after that. And it was just crazy. It's just a crazy time. There was so many people who were going out to do that. As far as the structure of the military, because now you went from something that was, being homeless was somewhat structured, like the structure that you had to make it. Did you get more from being in the Navy than you had? Did you learn how to be more structured and to chase your dreams a little bit more based on what they taught you there? Or how was that for you?
I would say I gained a family, I gained a support system and people who believed in me. There were resources that the military offered that I had not had prior to that. As far as structure, I think that what a lot of people don't know is that in order to stay in homeless shelters, there's actually a very strict routine that has to be followed. And that's why a lot of people choose not to, because they don't want to have to follow that routine. And so I already had that as like kind of a leg up on the other people that I had joined the military with, where I was already listening to strangers tell me what to do. I was already on a strict routine of having to clean and cook for myself and probably getting yelled at. So, but what I was like, because we're dealing well with the getting yelled at in boot camp. And I'm like, suck it up. This is life. But to me, it was normal. But it gave me, a stable paycheck, a safe place to sleep at night, food. I had a meal every meal. I had food there waiting for me. And so that was really, really cool for me. And so because of that, I was able to get out of survival mode and then start working on myself and start working on pursuing my goals.
And I'm assuming, homelessness in LA, I don't think you live there anymore, but homelessness in LA has like kind of blown up. Can you tell us a little, have you paid attention to that, kind of seen what's going on there now? And what are your thoughts on it currently?
It's terrible. And the cost of living, there's a system that prevents people from getting out of that situation. I endured that system myself or encountered it. And, it's the cost of living is already too high. There's kind of an elitism network out there. And so I remember many times trying to find a job and just not even getting an interview because there was, connections that I didn't have that people had there. So the system kind of holds people down in Los Angeles. And really, my recommendation to anybody who's in that type of situation is get out of those big cities and go somewhere where there's a more, a better opportunity to really pull yourself up. And if I had stayed in Los Angeles, I would probably there's a chance that I'd still be homeless because no matter how hard I fought, I just couldn't beat the system.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was born in California and not in Los Angeles, but, up in Central California, and just going down there and going back and kind of seeing what's going on down there. It's just kind of heartbreaking because it's such a beautiful place and it's just tough. $10 a gallon for gas right now, and there's a lot of homelessness, and it's like they have no choice because they can't live there. There's no way. It's like it's impossible.
Even a minimum wage paying job. I mean, I was working and it wasn't enough to at that time. Imagine now.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I feel like the best thing is you got to get out of there and go to a place where, it's more affordable. And a lot of these big cities, you're going to be kind of stuck in the system, I think, as long as you stay, unfortunately. And they just keep pouring drugs into the homeless community, and it keeps people down, just like the cycle of sex trafficking or human trafficking. As long as, you're in that cycle, it's like you're using drugs to numb yourself for the situation that you're in, but then you're using the trafficking or the sex work to fund the drug addiction. And so you're just stuck in this cycle that you can't get out of. I'm thankful that I never got into that.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I just can't imagine. I mean, it's sad.
Yes.
So from there, now we go into the Navy. We kind of get going in there. How long are you still currently active in the Navy, or are you just working for them as a contractor? Where did it go from?
I served for 8 years active duty, and then I got out, and now I'm actually a civil servant employee. And so I work for the Air Force now. Actually, I worked for the Navy for a while, and about 2.5 years ago, I got selected as the chief of Air Force lodging. And so now I oversee all of the Air Force lodging enterprise. So
what does that look like as a job? Like, are you basically placing people in places to live throughout the country and things like that on bases, or what's the kind of description of that?
Air Force Inns are the Air Force's hotel system.
Uh-huh.
And so we have the members that PCS or members that go TDY, they come and stay in our hotels. We have 88 of them throughout the world. And so I oversee the entire enterprise.
Oh, so it's not even just the United States, it's all over the world.
Correct. Yes.
So how do you enjoy doing that? What's your thoughts on that job?
I get to still serve, so I love that. I get to still serve as a civilian. I have the most amazing team that works with me, and I'm still part of the military family. So I work side by side with the active duty service members and reservists, and so I still get that camaraderie, but I'm a civilian, so I love it. It's like the best of both worlds. I really, really love it.
And in your time in the military, you said you spent 8 years in there. Kind of what was your job function when you were doing that for those 8 years?
I was a storekeeper, so supply and logistics. I served for 4 years on the Stennis, which is an aircraft carrier. And then I went and served the last 4 years of my career up in Great Lakes as an instructor. That's where the boot camp is. So when you say you're a storekeeper, they actually have like a store on the aircraft carrier? Is that what you're saying? They do, but I actually didn't do that job. It's kind of weird. So they changed the name of the rate that I had, because when I came in, it was called a storekeeper. Now it's called a logistics management specialist. So I joined the Navy. I was working at a clothing store on Melrose, and I was like, I kind of want to stay in the field that I'm in. I like retail. I liked what I was doing. And so he was like, oh, you'd be perfect for a storekeeper. My thought was that I was going to be managing the ship's store.
Right.
No, my first job was managing the toilet paper storeroom. So keeping stock, I was a stock manager. But logistics management, it kind of entails a lot of, you do the ordering, you do the managing of the stock, we do the financial, the contract management. So it's all encompassing. And I ended up working aviation material expediting, so the parts for the aircraft that were either non-mission capable or partial mission capable. And then after I got out, that job actually translates very well to the civilian side, because everybody needs that. And so after I got out, I worked for the Navy, in supply management as well as nuclear material management. And then I went to work the budget. I was managing about a $5 billion budget, and then I got selected for this position. So it was a good career choice, even though it started out as managing toilet paper store.
It's funny that I think, we talked a little bit about the show and how people create their own success and how they do those things. But it's like starting as a janitor, right? And then owning a big cleaning company. I mean, you start in the bottom selling toilet paper, and it transitions into over kind of what you do as well in your personal life, right? Because you kind of have a side hustle too. I mean, I didn't say you're an entrepreneur, but that's pretty much what you are, right? I mean, you're an entrepreneur, you're in retail, you kind of have like a clothing line, right? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I do. So when I joined, that was one of the things I had wanted. Was actually before joining the Navy, my dream was to own my own shop because I worked in the fashion industry. Obviously, the system prevented that. So after I was able to establish myself as a federal employee and kind of gained a little bit of a following on social media, I was like, I'm going to kind of pursue my passion. I'm going to go for it. And I opened up a boutique. It's called Perfectly Flawed. And now I have a six-figure online clothing boutique. And a lot of people feeling great in fun and flirty fashion.
Yeah, so talk about that a little bit, because I think, what is kind of the mission of your boutique? I think that people need to hear kind of like why you do what you do.
I felt like when I joined the military, I kind of had to morph into something that I wasn't, and I had to throw away my love for fashion. I wasn't really able to fully express myself, and I believe that through our appearance, through our outward appearance, we gain confidence and we're able to really perform better and present ourselves better. But I was suppressing that because I was trying to be something I wasn't. And when I was thinking of an idea for a business, I started thinking, well, most of my following are military, and typically the military businesses are like tactical or fitness apparel or, in the fitness industry. I didn't really want to go that direction. I didn't want to continue to morph. I wanted to really just stand out and be myself and be true to my passion and what I love. So I started the clothing line, and I modeled the clothes myself at 40 years old, mid-sized woman. And I feel like I give kind of women that, just that guidance and to help them with embracing their true self and, embracing their flaws and going out there and feeling good in their own skin without having to change or morph into something that they're not. And so it's been very empowering. I've built a wonderful community of women and men who love my clothing, as well as are just really stepping out and trying new things with fashion. It's been an incredible, incredible experience.
Well, and I think that a lot of us, in general, men struggle with body image and things like that too. And I know that it's probably twice as bad for women just because they set this bar so high. And what we always see is this perfect image of, well, it's not perfect, but it's what they try to tell us is perfect. And I think that's awesome that you're able to kind of just go, hey, this is what normal is like. This is not everyone is like a supermodel, and what they portray as a supermodel, because that's the big thing. It's like everyone is this thin, it's just not a good image. It's not what the actual true image of a person is. And so I had to teach that in health class to little middle school kids, telling them, hey, this is a picture. Look at this magazine. This is not what's normal. Don't expect for this to, everyone's different, right?
Yes. And I get a lot of hate online because I am very curvy and voluptuous. And so clothes fit me differently than they would, a size 0 model. And so sometimes people will be like, well, cover up, or, that doesn't fit your body right. And I'm like, actually it does. And I feel great in it. And so that's okay. And I'm trying to really show that you don't have to look a certain way in the clothes. It's okay to be voluptuous or to be curvy, right, and still wear clothes that make you feel good and beautiful. You don't have to cover it all up. And so I love it. And I get a lot of feedback whenever I release a new item. People are like, I want to see you wearing it. I want to see what it looks like on your body. And I'm like, okay, I like that. That makes me feel good.
I think a lot of the things too. So one of the big things, I know you're kind of like on all platforms of social media. I spend a lot of my time, like I started out spending a lot of time on Instagram, and the following didn't really grow, but I started to get more of a following on TikTok. And it's funny how people will kind of try and hate on everything that you do, no matter what. They kind of look in on you and they're like, oh, well, that person has all these followers or that person has this or whatever. So then they start trying to trash you. I'm assuming that you probably get a lot of very good comments and compliments and things like that. But how do you deal with the ones that are bad? Because I feel like a lot of times we put more weight on those. Like there may be 1 or 2 terrible comments to every 100 good comments. So how do you deal with that? And how would you tell people to deal with that?
Satire. Like I make a joke out of it because like, are we really going to let these people affect our self-esteem and the way we feel about ourselves? I've worked so hard to come from where I have to where I am today. And when people make those comments, I know it's just them hurting. And they're just looking for a way to tear someone down because they don't know my story and they don't understand what I've been through. And so they just have made an assumption. And through their assumption, they feel like they need to tear me down. And I feel sad for them. So I typically just turn it into satire. And a lot of times those people actually become my followers because they actually appreciate the way that I responded. There have been a few times where I've started to internalize. And then I have to remind myself, like you said, that there's more positive on social media and more positive that can be done than there is negative. And so I tend to either focus on that positive or how I can be a positive influence and role model, or I just kind of joke about the hate that I get, because it's like, if that's all you can point out, I mean, okay.
Right.
So.
And it's sad because even though you're happy about the way that you look or you're happy about your, who you are, when they do that, and like you said, you kind of internalize it sometimes. And I do the same thing. It's like, I'm working very hard at not letting people do that to me, but you do, it does get you. You just have to learn to push it away, right? Yeah,
I think one comment that I got that like hurt a little bit was somebody said, I just knew you didn't have a dad. And I was like, oh, yeah. That hit a little bit. I don't know why in that moment, because I've always known I don't have a dad. So it's not like it shocked me. But for some reason in that moment, I think it was while I was writing the book, I was going through all the emotions, having to relive all of the trauma that I had lived. And that comment hit at the wrong time. And so that one I had to really work myself through. But again, understand that they said that because they're hurting and they wanted to hurt me. And it did hurt me for a minute, but I put that hurt back into the book. And I was able to kind of use that as a way to guide me into helping others. I think about it like this. I'm emotionally strong. I wasn't 10, 20 years ago, but I am now. And so I need to be an example of those, for those who are currently still trying to find themselves, that, don't let these affect you and continue to shine and thrive and be your best self.
Yeah. And that's a great way to look at it. And people need to see that, I think. And I appreciate you, showing people that and being that way, because I think, I started out, I got some bad comments in the beginning, and it was just like, I started like going back at it. I'm like, you know what? This is not me. This is not what I want to be. This is not the example I want to be. These people are hurting. They have a problem. There's a reason why they're doing this. And to address it that way is just it's a great way to do it.
Yeah. If you start reacting and going back and forth with them, I almost feel like you give them what they want and they're getting some sort of dopamine off of that. And like, why, so every once in a while I'll just make a joke, and I get trolled mostly by kids. I've done a couple just satire videos, and I guess they didn't get the joke. Yeah. so it's kind of funny.
Kids these days, they just don't understand.
I'm not going to fight with somebody's kid though, right?
Right, exactly. And it's funny, like when you do lives, like I go into lives all the time and there's people just hopping and they say kind of the same things over and over again. And I'm like, hey, I could kick you. I'm not going to, because guess what? You're boosting this for me. And that's kind of how I take it. It's like, you're listening right now. So you're raising my count and you're helping me for more people who need to see me.
Yes.
Yeah. So you touched on the book a little bit. Tell us why you wrote the book, what it's about, and kind of that process.
So I have it here. My book is called Perfectly Flawed, and it's a veteran's journey from homeless to hero. The message of the book is that no one is coming to save you. And it's not that people don't want to save you, and it's not that you shouldn't be out trying to help other people. But everyone's kind of going through things in their life, and they may not either know that you need help, know how to help you or be able to prioritize your needs while they're trying to work through their own issues. And so the message is be your own hero. The reason I say be your own hero is because if you fall into a victim mindset, then you're going to kind of stay stuck. And so when you choose to be your own hero, you're choosing to be a survivor and you're choosing to pull yourself out of that situation. And so I share in my book, it is very detailed. It's very intimate about the experiences I had all the way from childhood until now. And I share the childhood abuse that I went through. I share the life as a homeless teenager. I share experiences with sexual assault in and out of the military, actually multiple occasions. And then I kind of go into my mindset that pulled me through all of that and how I got to where I am today. And where I am today, I feel like at 40 years old, it's a little bit young to write a memoir, but once you read the book, you'll understand why it was important to get this message out there and to really try to help people understand that you can be your own hero as long as you align your decisions with what you want for your life.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I think that, being your own advocate, being your person who pushes yourself out there. I have a company, a friend that actually puts out shirts and things like that. And I had saw a video the other day. He said that someone was downtown complaining about one of his shirts, and the shirt said, "Nobody cares, work harder." The fact of the matter is that nobody cares more than you do, or you should care about your future. And like you said, they're working through their own things. They don't have time to push you forward. Now, you may have some help along the way, but if you don't care, then how are you going to get where you get?
Exactly. And like you said, you'll have help along the way. And I point to a lot of people that have helped me and mentored me, but they're not going to stay with you and pull you all the way. They're just going to, they'll give you a little boost here, a little boost there. But ultimately, you have to be consistent. And we're going to fall. We're going to fall. We're going to fail. We're going to make mistakes. That's okay. As long as you have that mindset that I am my own hero, you're going to pick yourself back up and you're going to keep going. That's what's important. And that's why it's important to keep that mindset.
Yep, exactly. I think, again, it's like there's these people who they fail and it's over, right? And yes. Most people who are successes have failed multiple times and just continued to push forward and reinvent what they did before to make it happen.
Absolutely. It takes self-criticism, being able to look at yourself and understand what you could have done differently. That's part of not having a victim mindset, right? So if you have a victim mindset, you're not going to look internally and try to figure out, what did I do wrong? What could I do differently? In that poor me, woe is me mindset. And, who can I blame? Who can I be upset at? And you're not going to get really progress until you change your mindset. And so it's important. And especially at a young age, I was a daydreamer, and now I realize that I was actually manifesting for myself. I always had believed in myself and believed that I was going to have this grand life. And over the years, I think I was just manifesting for myself. And now I continue to do that. And in order to do that, you have to believe that you are going to be able to take control and provide those things for yourself.
Well, I think it's an awesome story. I really like the fact that, my thoughts are always that people they see the success, right? We can look and we can watch what you're doing now, and we don't see what happened before then, right? What got you where you are, the struggles that you went through. They always look at people and go, oh, well, look at that person. They have millions of dollars, or they have a nice car, or they have this and that, and they just got lucky, right? And we build our own luck. I mean, I don't even know that luck is a thing to me, but I think that you put things into perspective, and you build and you do the things that put you in the right position to make you successful.
I agree. And really living out your passion and kind of finding that makes it a lot easier, because when you're fueled by passion and you're fueled by your emotion of, what you want for this world, it makes it easier for you to continue to push through those hard times and those challenges. I mean, I've failed with my business. I've failed with my career. I've had many challenges along the way. There's been times where I felt like I wasn't doing well by my family because I was so committed to work, but I have to continue to just reassess and just pivot and in the direction that I want to go. So
Yep.
It's all purpose built though.
So you mentioned your family, and I know that you are currently married, right? And you have a couple kids. How do
Yes.
you treat your family, and what lessons did you learn from your childhood that you use in raising your own children and having your family?
I talk a lot about breaking the chains of dysfunction and how hard that, not hard, I don't want to say it's hard because for me it's easy because I love my daughters and I want that. But it's intentional. And part of that is having to cut out those toxic family members. And so I tried for many years to still gain the love of my mom. Even into adulthood, I wanted so bad for her to love me that I continued to change who I was to try to earn her love. And it wasn't until I started to see it rub off on my children and see that they were also having to earn her love that I was like, okay, this has to stop, because I'm not creating that life for them. I'm not making them feel like they have to earn anyone's love. I'm not putting any of those toxic behaviors onto them. And so in order to break those chains, I had to also make the tough decision of cutting out toxic family members. There are times, like I said, about, not being a victim. There's times where I have to assess my own reactions and responses and understand, did I overreact to something because of what I grew up with and what I know? And then if I did, I have to go and actually talk to my children about that and explain that to them and get them to understand that, because it's not fair for them to wonder what's wrong with mom or what did I do wrong, or to have to carry that burden. Right. And so it's humbling at times where I have to remind myself that it's not their fault that I reacted that way, and I need to go and explain that to them. But through that, I've built a very close relationship with them. They trust me, and they're also very protective of me because they know what I have gone through and how hard I'm working to give them the life that I never had.
Yeah,
but it is intentional. It is very intentional.
Someone asked me yesterday if I could relive a moment in my life, what I would relive, and it's kind of like one of those things that every single situation, and to me that meant, hey, can I change something? Like, could I go back and change it? And someone had to remind me that it was like, if you could just relive that day, what would you do? But every single thing that I've ever done has molded me into what I am today. And it sounds like that's exactly what it was for you. It's like you learn from everything. And I think people need to understand that. All those mistakes, they may be mistakes, but there's something that has turned you into what you are now.
And I talk a lot about that in the book. Over the years, I've been working so hard that I've suppressed emotions. I've suppressed the memories. I haven't really gone back to assess them often enough. And as I was writing the book, I had to, Perfectly Flawed book. I keep calling it the book. As I was writing Perfectly Flawed, I had to really dig deep into those experiences and relive them. And I had to experience the emotions, work through those emotions, and then celebrate how far I've come. And I think that's something we don't do enough. We try to stay humble to the point where we don't celebrate our accomplishments. And so I needed to really pat myself on the back and celebrate how far I've come because I never realized it. Like, I just have been so busy, keep going.
Right.
That I never stopped to say, wow, I've done pretty darn well for myself. And so it's important to stop along the way and celebrate your accomplishments as well.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things that you don't really like. My father was always like, talk with your work, not with your mouth, kind of thing. And so you don't really want to like brag about things. But I don't think I think you need to just, sometimes take a step back and look how far you've actually come and what you've accomplished with, the work that you've put in.
I was watching a story. I don't know if you know Andy Frisella, First Form. So I was watching his story the other day, and he said something that it hit deep, because on social media, and especially, we're kind of told, don't boast, don't show your accomplishments, stay humble. And he said, when you don't share your accomplishments with the world, you're robbing the next generation of inspiration. And wow, that hit deep, because that's so true. If we're just showing the negative, or we're hiding our accomplishments, hiding how far we've come, are we really giving inspiration to the next generation? So I think it's, there's got to be a balance where you're not bragging, but you're also sharing how far you've come.
Right. And I think it's, I mean, from a branding standpoint, which is kind of what, like what we're trying to do, like you're trying to let people know who you are. You're trying to get, it's, I sell window coverings, but I basically look at my life as like selling myself to someone else as someone who they would want to buy from, or who they would want to be involved with, or who inspires them, or whatever it is that you're trying to do. And I think that that's highly important to show people that you do celebrate those accomplishments, that you do have those moments when, things aren't good, when they want to know that you're a real person, because you sharing your story is going to inspire so many people. It may not inspire everyone, but there's, 4 or 5 people out there every single day who are going through something like you've gone through. I mean, we talked about the homeless situation in Los Angeles. There's hundreds of thousands of people who are going through what you go through every day. And if they can get a little insight or see someone who dug their way out of that, that's so inspiring.
I think it would have been inspiring for me as a youth to see that somebody in my situation was able to pull themselves through. I remember I would be walking down the street and I would see, these women in their convertibles or, their nice clothes. And I thought I could never have that. And so if they see that somebody who came from their situation was able to achieve that on their own, then that would inspire them and that would give them the hope that they need to turn around and change their own story. So I agree.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think too many people put that this is the situation that I was dealt, and that's where it has to stay. It doesn't have to stay that way. You can get out. You just got to put in the work.
Yes.
So tell us where we can follow you, where we can find the book, any social media or anything like that you want to talk about.
So my social media across all platforms is Janae Perfectly Flawed. And my book is called Perfectly Flawed, A Veteran's Journey from Homeless to Hero. You can find it on Amazon. It's a bestseller. And so just Perfectly Flawed book. If you can't find it, that'll take you directly to the link. But pretty easy to find across all platforms.
Yeah, I definitely know I'll be getting one of those. I want to hear the story more. Like I told you before, it's like I don't like to know too much, but I want to know just enough, so that I can ask real questions so you can know where I'm really coming from. I appreciate you being on here. We do have, I ask this question to everyone. I think that it's important for people to understand that success is different for every single individual. How would you define what success is to yourself, and how you would create that for yourself?
So success for myself is really being able to create a life that can inspire others and living my purpose through my career and through everything that I'm doing. So in every aspect of my life, I am out trying to help people to be their best self. And so to me, that's what success is. As long as you're living your passion and you love what you're doing, you're going to thrive. Just don't be driven by dollar value.
Yep. And I think that's great. I think that most people do, it's like we talked about. I think most people think that success is dollar driven, and it's not. It's I make decent money doing what I'm doing, but this sharing your story, sharing other stories with other people to show them, to inspire them is kind of my passion. And that's what I want to see. I want other people to succeed and know that it's possible to make that happen. So I think you're doing that. And I appreciate, taking the time to kind of share that with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yep. Well, everyone, thank you very much for tuning in. Janae, I wanted to say thank you again for hanging out with us. Until next time, I challenge you to find the shape of your success.
Thank you.